Oh, yeah, wait, dude, an hour ago. If you guys don't know, there's this big, beautiful bill going through the House from Donald Trump, which is supposed to save America and buy a bunch of things and be great. Well, it turns out it adds like 5.2 trillion to the US deficit and blows out our spending. It has extended and increased tax cuts. And so it got blocked. It got blocked by Republicans. Basically, a good number of fiscal conservatives said, hey, this is crazy. Especially because, you know, if you time the bill, it's like all the extra spending and the tax cuts happens right now, but the so-called cost savings don't kick in until after Trump's term. So anything that would like actually be a hard choice happens to someone else. And all the easy money happens right now. And so it's kind of, you know, I mean, it's a dog shit bill, to be honest. It's like a total fiscally irresponsible bill. And it got blocked. Republicans voted against it and stopped it, which is why Trump tweeted out that a bunch of grandstanding Republicans were trying to get in the way of his big, beautiful bill. But also at the exact same time as this spending argument is going on, Moodys, which is a credit ratings agency, just downgraded U.S. credit from AAA to AA1, which puts us not in the top tier of countries for likelihood of repaying our debt, which is now over $36 trillion. And again, Moodys, one of the people that were responsible for the financial crisis in 2008, because they're so loath to downgrade anything. Moody's downgrade of America's debt is signal we can no longer wait to address the debt crisis. We do not believe that material multi-year reductions in mandatory spending and deficits will result from current fiscal proposal under consideration. Basically saying the current bill is stupid. The idea is they're just looking pretty rationally at the fact that we have an insane amount of debt and all proposals are, hey, let's cut taxes. Let's cut taxes and increase spending. I mean, this is what I'm talking about when I said we're having like a Liz Truss type moment in America. It no longer makes sense. And we're already spending $1 out of every $5 we raise in taxes on interest spending to our previous debt. We're at the end of the cycle here, dude. Our debt interest servicing is about to be bigger than the military. We're already in such a bad spot. Now, listen, nobody is advocating that we have enough money to actually pay down our debt. Unfortunately, it's too big. But a reasonable solution is to balance our budget and then grow GDP so that the debt becomes less large as a percentage of what we make. But we're not doing that. We are cutting taxes, increasing spending, blowing it all out, leaving it all to die, basically. I mean, it's just a big party when you're already out of money. So I'm glad it got blocked. I mean, I assume he's going to put a lot of leverage and power down to try and get it forced through. Again, many of these Republicans are afraid to oppose him because he can get them primaried. So I don't know what'll happen, but I do know that this Moody's thing is like a signal. And the second this happened, which is today, U.S. borrowing costs rose. Because at the end of the day, you know, if you're going to loan money to a country, most people, big pension funds, big banks, they want to loan it to AAA. They want to loan it to the safest places. If America's not there because there's more risk, that's great. You know, you have to offer higher and higher returns to get people to invest in you. What would you say to people who say that increasing income tax on richer people will be passed on to the consumer through tax incidence? You're saying if we tax rich people, they'll raise prices on things? Or what are you trying to say? I don't understand what you're trying to say. I'm not trying to denigrate it. Tax incentives? I guess I can zoom out your question a little bit while you're figuring that out. No, I disagree entirely. Again, I think the most prosperous era in American history is 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. That 30-year window, we had way higher top tax rates. We had balanced budgets. We had, you know what I'm saying? And companies still grew. They were still world class. We had more exports. It's certainly not impossible. And so I would disagree with you just on principle, but also, you know, a big part of it is just tax enforcement. So a big thing, you know, with this is Elon Musk and Doge was supposed to be like, we're gonna help the deficit. So that way we can afford these tax cuts. The idea was like tariffs plus Doge would allow us to afford these tax cuts. But Doge has done nothing really, except for cut the IRS, which means we can't raise our current taxes. And then tariffs are being unwound because they've been a catastrophic economic policy. Like the tariffs are being unwound and backpedaled left and right because they're not working. So, and the amount the 10% tariff will raise is very minuscule. So I don't know. I would just say like this is a big problem and it's starting to hit. Like these credit downgrades are assigned to all investors globally that U.S. assets are riskier. Again, AAA rated countries include like, you know, Swiss bonds, French bonds, German bonds, Japanese bonds are AAA. All these countries are now at a higher credit rating. And so we have to offer even more interest to get people to invest in our bonds. Which countries are AAA rated? You can see it right here, dude. We just got downgraded, so we're not here anymore. We've already been downgraded by the S&P. Now it's going to be Moodys as well. Australia, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, EU, Singapore. No longer us. No longer us. So it's not everything, but it's a beginning of something. It's the beginning of like a real problem, a real debt pile with not even a plan to stop it increasing. Not just to not pay it, but to stop it from increasing. And it's pretty wild to not be AAA when you are the world reserve currency. That gives you such a stretch amount of room. When you're the world reserve currency, you can kind of print a little bit, you know, because the inflation that would normally happen is distributed across everyone. So you get a little bit of wiggle room. You get a little bit of wiggle room. So it's an exorbitant privilege. So to have the greatest advantage and to not be credit worthy is crazy. We are still the world reserve currency, yes. I may have been understanding what you said earlier, but we're not going to feel the effects of the increased deficit from the bill if it would have went through during Trump's presidency. No, what I was trying to say is Trump's bill proposed a bunch of spending increases and tax decreases. So things like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and then tons of no taxes for the rich that were extended from his previous cuts. To balance that, to make that math seem to be okay, it proposed a bunch of things that would save money. But all of the things it proposed to save money didn't kick in until after he was leaving the presidency. So it was all the juicy stuff now, which is like tax cuts, more spending, and then all the pain, all the like the hard part later. And so the idea was like, okay, I do all the good stuff now, and then whoever's next can deal with the problems. And that's when, of course, people get mad in it. You really want them to be balanced so that people feel both effects. I'm not bringing this up. House Republicans brought this up and said, hey, this doesn't make any sense. And by the way, you know, this is not just a Trump thing. Trump is, if anything, a symptom of this long-running problem. But Moodys mentioned this in their announcement. They said, first of all, this is a long time coming. And they thought about it very seriously because they know how important it is. And they finally had to do it. They had to make this downgrade. And they said it's a result of decades of fiscal mismanagement from including, but not only limited to, Donald Trump, okay? And so we're now sowing after the reaping. We're reaping what we sowed. No, we're reaping what we sowed. To port Moodys, dude, it's funny you bring that up because that was the response from the White House representative, which was like, not to port Moodys, but it was like the agenda out of Moodys. You know? This is a biased. Yeah, Moodys went woke. If the U.S. turned course, how long would it take to get AAA back? I don't think long at all. Immediately after downgrading, you could get AAA back relatively easy if you proposed a serious plan to balance the budget. But until anyone does that, and no one is, because it entails some short-term pain that no one is willing to, it's politically disastrous. But the problems will only get bigger. Listen, as interest eats up a bigger and bigger chunk of our government, services degrade, dude. Healthcare degrades. Even you may not care about this. I don't care about much about this. But the military degrades. All the things we're spending money on go to more and more to interest payments. It used to be a tiny chunk. Now it's 1/5. Then it'll be 1/4. Then, you know, it's like, that is the problem. That is, I think when you talk about budgets or national debt, everyone goes, I don't know what that means. Who cares? And that's the real world impact, is that we're not only not paying it, we can't even afford the interest payments. You keep saying short-term terrible. What doesn't everyone understand is unsustainable? Or is it just common man like, fuck you, higher taxes? Well, I mean, listen, it's hard to ask. Listen, I don't want common man taxes to be raised. It's hard to ask the common person who's already suffering from this to bear more of the tax burden to pay the debts that previous administration, you know, that's not what I'm asking. But I think what I try to do is like to put in real terms the impact of this insane overspending on our generation and future generations. It makes the problem bigger and bigger. It's just a kicking of the can that has now gotten so massive. How have we not cut military yet, bro? I don't get why we don't get... Listen, Linkus, your brother works in the Swedish military, right? He told me if I ever went to Sweden, I could drive in a Swedish tank. Why doesn't he hook us up with some cheap Swedish tanks? We could save billions if your bro gives America some cheap Swedish tanks. That's the hook. That's the connect. America just needs to give the correct person God mode for a decade and let them fix everything. Better be real careful with the correct person part. So many times in history, people have done exactly what you just said. To absolute disaster. The only good example I can think of this is like Lee Kuan Yew, who's like the closest to... Have you seen the Lee Kuan Yew fan cam?
Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine.
This was a mud flat, swamp. Today, this is a modern city. 10 years from now, this will be a metropolis.
But many, and again, there's problems in Singapore too, don't get me wrong, but at least their standard of living increased. But many times when the standard of living doesn't even increase, it just goes to the guy you gave God mode and his friends and family and cohorts and party. And they fucking suck the country dry. No, they don't. Not like that.